Hey everybody, it's Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco. Every week on this podcast, we feature artists, business owners, photographers, bartenders, and other San Franciscans talking about living, working, and doing their thing here. It's a way to get to know your neighbors. Before I set up this episode, just a quick reminder that we're now up to 40 episodes. So if you're new to the podcast, please dig back through the archives, which are available on our website, storiedsf.com, and anywhere you get your podcasts, and listen to any or all of our past episodes. Welcome to episode 40. This one's a little different. I joined my good friends at Bitch Talk Podcast on a Bourdain Crawl to honor the chef and writer at the places in San Francisco he loved and wrote about. One of those was Zam Zam in the Upper Haight. When they interviewed bartender Kundan Baidwan, we all knew that the recording would have to go onto both podcasts, Bitch Talk and Storied San Francisco. Kundan is a great bartender, and in this podcast, she shares the rich history of Zam Zam, an Upper Haight neighborhood mainstay since the 1940s. The ladies of Bitch Talk will be on another episode of this podcast, so stay tuned. Meanwhile, here's Kundan.
So, if you will, again, can you tell us a little bit about the history of Zam Zam?
So, the bar was opened in 1941 by two brothers, Sam and Malik Mouche. They left Baghdad in 21. They were Assyrian, so it was a very small ethnic group from the greater Mesopotamia area. When they moved out here, Sam and his wife ran a little luncheonette counter down the street. Their son, Bruno, would come to the luncheonette after school and go clean up and sweep up the floors, and he learned, the hard work that you put into owning a business. And when his father opened this bar, his father and his uncle bought the building in 1941 and opened this bar. He worked alongside with his dad until he served in World War II. Because we opened 11 days after Pearl Harbor, so San Francisco was suddenly just teeming with sailors,
right, and drinkers.
Yeah. But they really.
Where was I then?
You were here, but it was a different you. Anyway, I'm sure.
Became gay.
Yes. Yeah. Gay old San Francisco.
But yeah, the neighborhood was just a lot of working class families.
A lot of San Francisco was, to be honest. Yeah.
And so when Bruno's dad opened the bar, he wanted a nice upscale cocktail lounge where people could go, and he wanted it to be a throwback to his motherland. So they found an architect, John Oshana, who also was an artist, and he liked to do lobbies and bars and incorporate a huge mural, which is why we have this epic
right behind
mural
you.
Us.
Yes, it's beautiful.
Still original. It's only been cleaned, never been touched up. The new owner who took it over from Bruno when he passed in 2000, because Bruno didn't have any children to pass it on to.
This has never been touched up?
It's only been cleaned.
It's beautiful.
There's been no paint added to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. Everyone that's listening, when you come here and you see, well, I already put up a picture on Instagram, but when you come in here and see, it looks like someone just painted it. Anyways,
it's
beautiful.
Remarkable, and it's so indelible when people know Zam Zam. We had a short 30-second clip in a Woody Allen movie, Blue Jasmine.
Oh, yeah.
And it literally is a quick pan across the mural.
The mural.
And then a focus on the two characters sitting and having a drink. And there's almost no dialogue. Like I said, it lasts maybe 30 seconds. But I had women come in and say, I just saw the movie. I live on the other side of town. I haven't been here in 20 years, and I had to come in.
Yeah.
I've had people come in tears. I'm so happy you guys are still here.
Yeah.
It's a big part of the history of Haight Street.
Yeah.
So like I said, when Bruno took it over from his dad, he really stuck to his dad's old rules. And like I said, the bar opened in the 40s, and his father was very wary of young women that came in to drink by themselves, because back then it was usually ladies of the night. So there was an unspoken house rule that women couldn't come in and drink by themselves. And
okay.
Yeah.
Well, what about ladies of the day, which we are right now?
Which is right now.
Yeah. If you come in twos or threes, then you're fine. It was the solo women that he always had to look out for. Our entrance to our basement used to be a phone booth, but Sam, Bruno's father, caught a sailor and a young lady in there after some shenanigans and ripped it out.
So like
I said, they
this
were old
thing
school.
Right here?
They were immigrants, and so they had this very old school mentality. And they also, like I said, the great thing about Bruno growing up on the street and working in his dad's luncheonette, his parents' luncheonette, was that he knew what hard work meant and how you could reap the rewards. And so he really ran his dad's business with that same motto. And so when hippies came in asking for free acid, he was like, "Get off my lawn / get out of my bar."
I love that eternal struggle to keep this place classy on Haight Street, like in the heart of just free love, free drugs.
So if you think free love was rough, the years that came after that were really rough because there was a bad heroin epidemic on this street. It was a rough neighborhood. And that was probably really hard for Bruno to witness. Like I said, when he was a kid growing up here, it's a completely different world. But, you know, he stayed the course. And in the 90s in particular, like, you just didn't know when the bar was going to be open. He didn't have to worry about making money off the bar because his parents had, you know, grandfathered the bar down to him and his brother. And so he just opened when he wanted to, and he would kick you out if he didn't like the way you looked or the drink you ordered, and he didn't have to worry about it. So when Bob took over the bar, he obviously wanted the staff to be a little bit friendlier and all that stuff. But, you know, we still want to maintain the integrity of the bar and the history of it. And that was Bruno's dying wish, was to make sure that the Zam Zam stayed alive and the legacy continued.
Well, and that's what Bourdain really pays a tribute to when he talks about Zam Zam, is the legendarily unfriendly owner, but for a reason, and his spirit is still alive. And that's kind of what made this place special and what sets it apart from every other place on Haight Street.
And as much as we are still a modern bar, obviously, you know, you change with the times, there's a level of decorum that just, you know, you got to be an adult to drink here. Not just over 21. Like, you got to act like an adult.
Little manners.
If you're a smartass, and I won't take it. Most of my staff, my coworkers, none of the staff here wants to deal with your smartass. Like, if you want to go drink PBRs in the park, that's cool. I won't, like, knock anybody that comes in here and wants a beer and a shot, but just be an adult about it, you know?
Right.
We love making a good cocktail, but we just want to make sure the customers are happy and everyone's playing nice. It's a great bar. There's no televisions. It's a curved bar, so you actually are encouraged to talk to each other. The jukebox, we try and make sure there's nothing from this century or even touching this century. Because
we love it, by
really
the
classic.
way. We love it.
Appreciate it. Yeah, the staff here, we all try and kind of put our 2 cents. Everyone has a favorite on there and that somebody had a, you know, request for, but yeah, we try and keep it a really classic, eclectic, but still classic.
What does the history of this bar mean to you? Like, you've been here for 6 years, but a patron for 11. Like, it must really hold a huge place in your heart to be here and want to be here.
There's a huge sense of community. I think what is overlooked in the Haight, because it is such a tourist destination, is that there still is that community. And I think that's what Bruno clung to and appreciated. He had his friends. He had his group of people that could come in and they knew the rules and they were friends. Bruno liked to go out to dinner with some of his patrons. And honestly, like, half the patrons that come in here, half my regulars, are friends of mine. I go to their kids' graduations or...
Oh, you make them one... Well, you used to make them onesies.
Yes, I took that upon myself to make onesies for a few of the babies that were born to Zam Zam couples. We've had a wedding reception here for a regular, and it was great because we never closed to the public. So even if you want to have an event here, we never close the doors. It's never a private party. It's always going to be open.
Yeah.
And that was something that Bob really always wanted to keep, to maintain. He never wanted the neighborhood folk to feel like they couldn't come into their spot. Because on a given weekday, it seriously is. It's the neighborhood community checking in on each other. And how was your trip? And how's your kid? And how's work? And just... There's a lot of that, and I think that's what's overlooked, and I think that's what's lovely about Zam's, is there, as much as there are communities at every other bar, there's an overlapping sense of family and community in this neighborhood.
I do feel like, also given the location where there could be crazy shit happening all the time, you really need that sense of community to really maintain and survive in this neighborhood. Can you talk about some of the crazy stories of like customers that you've had in here? You've already shared some of them with us. They're incredible.
There's funny, crazy stuff, like when a guy probably tripping on acid came in dressed like a kangaroo. I, in all honesty, just tried to meet him at his level and say, sorry, we don't serve kangaroos, and he politely walked out. So, you know, weird stuff like that happens. But, you know, it is still a bar and it is still Haight Street, and there is always an element of, you know, diciness out there. I did once have a homeless man try and punch me. Well, he did punch me. But before I could even cock back and swing, there was another regular from the neighborhood that had him by the back of the collar and was dragging him out.
Nice.
Like, that's another really nice thing about knowing that even when you're working by yourself, there's people in the bar that you know respect and love the bar so much and respect and love you so much that they won't let anything bad happen. So there's, like I said, that sense of community really, it gives you a stronger backbone, lets you stand up a little taller, knowing that there's always somebody in your corner. Or if it's just a stressful day and somebody is being an idiot and you're trying not to turn on your inner Bruno, just having someone where you can just glance at them and be like, oh my God, I want to kill them. Or myself. But yeah.
That should be another t-shirt up there, my inner Bruno or something, channeling.
Don't make me channel my inner Bruno.
Right, yeah, something.
Yeah. I have
or
to
a little
tell
pin
people.
or something that just says that.
Really funny.
That was Beta Breakers. Beta Breakers is always a crapshoot, and there's 2 people working because it's
crazy.
It's crazy. And there was one year when about a dozen people dressed up as giant hot dogs were trying to sneak beers out, and it's in
their buns,
sticking their beer in the bun.
Don't talk about my buns that way.
Or what you stick in there.
You can stick a little more than beers.
Hey, all right. Anyway. That's why it's called bitch talk.
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead.
But yeah, it was my coworker had to yell like things you'd never expect to come out of your mouth, much like "Sorry, we don't serve kangaroos." Was if one more hot dog tries to sneak out beers, we're 86ing all the hot dogs. And it was like a very angry. It wasn't said calmly like that. It was screaming at the top of your lungs because you're just at wit's end with how stupid people can be on a sunny day when they're allowed to drink in
A lot
public.
of drinking, yeah. Yeah. Quickly, so, we approached you, as we have in every place we've been to, and been like, is it okay if we record here? And we mentioned Anthony Bourdain, and you brought out a book, but I didn't hear what the story was in terms of what that book is and who brought it and who's signing it,
So,
and if you don't mind sharing.
Anthony Bourdain came to Zam's 9 years ago, and some of the patrons that were in that video are still patrons to this day. The owner, Bob, was the bartender then. He does not bartend, but he still owns the bar. And he got to understand and really love the history. Bruno, obviously, I'm sure Anthony Bourdain has had a lot of overlap with his cantankerous side, but there was also a really sweet side to Bruno. And again, that love of his family and the legacy that they gave him. And so on the day that Bourdain passed away, I was working. It was a definite struggle to keep buttoned up when there was just so much coursing through you viscerally when hearing that news. I think a lot of people that worked in food and beverage understood that if you've read Kitchen Confidential, you understand he spoke like you spoke. He could take phrases out of your own brain and put them on paper, and you thought nobody else felt like that until you read his writing, because he spoke from the heart. He was a really honest character, and a lot of people that came in that day were just not making a big deal out of it. There was a lot of people that came in and just sort of, ordered their martinis and quietly to their friend just cheered, to Bourdain, to the chef. And one of our regulars brought in her copy of Kitchen Confidential and just asked if anybody wanted to write a note about their takeaway from Bourdain, their love of him and his approach to life, not just food. So it was just a nice way to have everybody sort of write down a little sentiment. And so we're just keeping it behind the bar, and it's nice for people to be able to flip through and read and see and understand.
Anybody listening to this who wants to come into Zam Zam, how do you describe it? What can they expect coming into this place, and why is it so quintessentially San Francisco?
I think because you can walk in and start a conversation with a person that you might not know on your day-to-day life, in your day-to-day routine. I've seen a professor talk to a mechanic, and by the end of the night, they were hugging and buying each other shots. Like, seriously made a deep connection. And that's one of the reasons why Zam Zam doesn't have televisions. This isn't a place where you just gape into the abyss. You engage in the environment. This is a space that you are holding a spot in. So what are you going to do with that spot? Have a cocktail? Yes. Enjoy the music, maybe play a few songs on the juke? Sure. But converse and get to know your neighbor. And I feel sometimes in the changing world of San Francisco, we forget that. And I'm not a San Francisco native, but people often think I am because I really respect the connections of people and their history and the time they've spent here. And again, this, just like the nation is built on immigrants, San Francisco is built on people coming from all over. Cities are like that. They draw people from all stretches of the world and the country. So it's wonderful to have people that, like I said, don't necessarily have a surface connection that you can pinpoint, but you just have a couple drinks, and the next thing you know, you're going to find something that you're going to be like new best friends with somebody that you meet here.
Music for the podcast is by Otis McDonald, a.k.a. Joe Begale. Film photography is by Michelle Kilfeather. Please follow Storied San Francisco on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our website, which has all the episodes and photos of storytellers, is storiedsf.com. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, we'd really appreciate it if you would rate and review the show. If you have comments and suggestions, please email us at storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Check back next week to hear from San Francisco Giants photographer Andy Cuno.